It was clear to the Allies that the only way to defeat Germany would involve breaching the Atlantic Wall. They would need to break through millions of tons of steel and concrete, guarded by hundreds of thousands of soldiers and vast networks of obstacles and trenches. After the suicidal probe at Dieppe, Allied planners came to the immediate realisation that their strategy and equipment were woefully inadequate. The Dieppe Raid was intended to not only test the feasibility of a landing, but also to boost morale and show Joseph Stalin that the Allies were serious about opening a second front. The operation was a disaster, with 3,623 of the 6,086 who landed being killed, wounded or captured, and the majority of the vehicles were unable to move on the soft sand and were abandoned. Lessons had been learnt, but at a high cost. After the evacuation at Dunkirk in 1940 that resulted in the majority of the BEF's equipment simply being left behind, the British needed weapons, and fast. This was a serious problem, and with the looming threat of a German invasion, many weird and wonderful projects were accepted for testing. There were varying levels of success, but ultimately it would pave the way for the topic of this video. Sir Percy Hobart, nicknamed Hobo during his time as a Royal Armoured Corps officer, had been discharged in 1940 after a difference of opinion relating to armoured warfare. Rather than give up military service completely, he enlisted as a corporal in his local defence volunteer unit in Chipping Campden, the precursor to the Home Guard. Churchill unknowingly at the time not only saved him from his fall, but enabled one of the most influential figures in Operation Overlord's eventual success. Several more attempts to remove him from service would also fail. Hobo was known for being an unorthodox character, but he was a natural leader, commanding much respect from his men. He was also an excellent designer and engineer, having once served in the Royal Engineers. This talent would see a range of vehicles created that became known as Hobart's Funnies, the DD tanks or Donald Duck tanks that most people recognise. Amphibious tanks were not an entirely new design. They were first thought of at the end of World War I. A flotation screen made from canvas would provide enough buoyancy to keep it from sinking, whilst propellers connected to the engine's drivetrain would propel it through the water aided by the tracks. The crab tank, designed to clear a path in the expected minefields, sported a rotating drum with attached chains that would detonate mines upon contact, once again powered by the tank's main engine. The Crocodile. This was a Churchill tank fitted with a flamethrower in place of the bow machine gun. It towed an 1,800-litre tank of fuel and had a range of just over 100 metres. It would terrify would-be defenders, and like in many other theatres would see them abandon their posts rather quickly. The AVRE. Its most famous being fitted with a petard spigot mortar in place of the main gun. It fired a short-range 18-kilogram demolition warhead. Its downside was that it had to be loaded externally, putting the loader at risk. It had a crew of 6, all engineers except the driver. The word petard in several European languages referred to fireworks. In military use, it was a rudimentary and dangerous siege weapon deployed by petardiers to breach defences, leading to Shakespeare's reference, hoist on your own petard, or being blown up by one's own bomb. Other AVREs include obstacle crossing variations like the Ark, a turretless Churchill with the sole purpose of becoming a rudimentary bridge, a fascine for crossing smaller ditches and trenches, although not limited to this role, and like the next option still carried its petard mortar, the SBG that could deploy a bridge capable of spanning 30-foot gaps, a design that was stolen by several countries, allied and otherwise. Like the crab mentioned earlier, there was a bobbin that would roll out a 3-metre wide canvas to enable following vehicles to cross soft sand without sinking. There were several other inventions, and alongside their main roles, they are also loaded with associated engineering supplies like explosives and tools. An interesting note to mention is even the AVRE manuals did not specify what it actually stood for, leading to much confusion. In official documents, it's been referred to as both Assault and Armoured Vehicle Royal Engineers, the latter being more widely adopted.